Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I'll be giving you guys my outlook for the Washington Commanders wide receiving core in 2023, expectations for each of them, and talking about if they could be a top 5 group this season. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and that notification bell as well. It takes 1 second to do each of those things, so go ahead and do it, please. Okay, so real quick, let's look at the Washington Commanders depth chart before we go into each individual player. So we got Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Dyami Brown, Dax Milne, Marcus Kemp, who, if you guys don't know, the Washington Commanders signed this offseason, free agent out of Kansas City, has some familiarity with Eric Bieniemy, and his offense is more of a special teams guy, though. Undrafted free agent Zion Bowens, undrafted free agent Kesmir Allen, Kyrie McGowan, and they got Mitchell Tinsley, Bryson Tremaine, Jalen Sample. You got a few other guys as well that are undrafted free agents. But that's the receiving core. I think it's a really, really good group. And let's just get into it. So Terry McLaurin, don't have to talk about him too much. We know how good he is. 9 yards away from 1,200, man. Really should have gotten 1,200 in this Dallas game. He had 74, needed 83 to get to 1,200. Sam Howell threw an absolute dime and led Terry, and it would have been 10, 15 plus yard gain, and he drops it. He wasn't used to getting those nice passes to him, so that would have gotten him 1,200. But the quarterback play the last few years has really limited his production because I think he's a top 10 receiver, but he does not have top 10 production. And, he should have, if he would have had a good quarterback last year, probably 1,300 plus yards. And over 1,000 yards each of the last 3 seasons, 919 in his rookie year. So I think that this season, Sam Howell is going to be an upgrade over what we had. He also throws, he leads receivers more, which is good for yards after the catch, which Terry is good at. So I think this will be a good year for Terry. I'll guess 1,280 yards and 7 touchdowns for Terry McLaurin this season. Again, don't need to get into him too much. We know how good Terry is. We know the leader he is. He's going to have a very, very good year under Sam Howell. The next guy is Jahan Dotson. This is a pre-recorded video, and I made a video about Jahan Dotson, expectations for him. Both of these videos will go out during my vacation, so not sure which one's first, but either way, go ahead and check out that video as well. Jahan Dotson going into second year, won't get into him too much as well because, again, made a whole video on it, but 523 yards and 7 touchdowns in his rookie year. Good, not great, but missed 5 games because of a hamstring injury. First few games back also, they were playing really, really run heavy and weren't passing to him too much, which lowered his production as well. And yep, he was a touchdown machine though. Look at those first few games, 2-1-0-1. 4 touchdowns in his first 4 games. And then once he actually, they started involving him in the offense again, 1-1-1, should have had another one, dropped like a 75-yard touchdown, and then 0-0 in the last couple games. But he was really good in his rookie year, very good route runner, good release, good hands for the most part. There were some, passes that he should have caught. He really should have, but for the most part, Jahan Dotson had a really solid rookie year. This year, my expectations for him is 1,000 yards. I think he should get over, 1,000, around that range. If it's 950, slightly disappointing, but not bad. But if he over 1,000, I think it'll be an extremely successful season for Jahan Dotson. So that's kind of my expectations for him and what I think he should get. And yeah, that's kind of it for Jahan. I think he has a chance to be a very, very good number 2 receiver, but I think if he continues on the trajectory he is and with the talent he has, I think he has a chance to be a number 1 receiver in this league, and we would have 2 number 1s on our team. Next guy on the list is Curtis Samuel. 3rd year for the Commanders, but really his 2nd year is going to be this year. You look at his stats. Let's go ahead and look at it. This past season, played in 17 games, has 64 catches for 656 yards and 4 touchdowns. Also had 187 rushing yards and a touchdown. Pretty good season. Pretty good for season for Curtis Samuel, what is that about? 830 yards, something like that, and had 5 total touchdowns. So it was really solid this year. And I think that this next year, I think he could get a little bit more receiving yards, 656. He started out the season pretty strong, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 55, 80, 50, 40, and 60. And, it was kind of pretty even out, except for, again, this stretch where they barely passed the ball. 28, 10. I guess he was hurt for a game. I don't remember that. Was he hurt for a game? No, I guess he just didn't get a single reception. They did in these 3 games. It was really bad for the receivers. Terry was the only one getting any, receptions at all. I just want to see what Terry did in that stretch. I think he did good against the Eagles. Yeah, Terry still went off, but he was the only, I remember this. He was like the only one getting targets. Jahan and Curtis weren't getting any, but once we got back to that Giants game, they started to throw the football a little bit more. And, he was good last year. He was really good last year. I think he could get a little bit more involved in the passing game and running game. I think, honestly, could get him, a little fewer carries, but just make those carries a little bit more efficient. Because there were times where he was really good, but then there was times where it was like a little bit too much. Like that Giants game was pathetic by Scott Turner. 5 carries, 1 yard. If we would have given those 5 carries to Brian Robinson, we would have won that game probably in the playoffs. So just really annoying. But yeah, I think if we can get a season like the Panthers got in 2020 out of him, that would be really good. 850 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 200 rushing yards, maybe a little bit less than 200, and 2 touchdowns in 15 games. So he had a really good year that last year. And yeah, overall, I think Curtis Samuel's a really, really good third option. Been dealing with a little bit of an injury in minicamp, but should be good to go and seems very, very minor. But yeah, man, excited for Curtis Samuel this year. And this trio is really, really good. Or at least, not necessarily yet because we don't know how good Jahan Dotson is going to be, but it has the potential to be one of the better trios in the NFL. Maybe like behind, the Bengals who have Higgins, Chase, and Boyd, and then maybe, the Dolphins who have Waddle, Hill, and then their third option isn't as great as ours, but like Cedric Wilson. I don't know. But moving on to the next guy. And obviously, with these positional outlook videos, I predict if they're going to make the roster or not. Obviously, Terry's making it. Jahan is making it. Curtis is making it. And then Diontae Brown is making it. Not as strong as those other guys, but he's going to make it. Going in his 3rd year. This is a big year for Diontae. He needs to step up. First 2 years, very, very disappointing. 2nd year, when he got targets, he was very good. He had 5 catches for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. 29 yards a catch, very small sample size, but he looked good this past year when he got attempts. They weren't giving him the ball much. They weren't involving him much, partly because the receiving core ahead of him was really good, but even when Jahan was out, they still weren't giving him the ball. And I think that, partly because Heineke could not really throw deep, and also Scott Turner just wasn't, having him run deep too much, and when he did, he was successful. But, I was disappointed this year by Diontae. Not necessarily by, disappointed in Diontae, but disappointed in his production. A lot of that is on Scott Turner and Taylor Heineke, and a little bit on Diontae as well. But I think this year is the big year for Diontae. He's got to show something, and don't need him to go out there and have 700, 800 yards. Because let's keep it real, he's not doing that. Because unless one of the top 3 guys gets hurt, which knock on wood, hopefully doesn't happen. But what I want from Diontae is, okay, he's gonna be the 4th option. We know that, but a catch or 2 a game would be good. Give me a catch or 2 a game, and then Jahan, Curtis, and Terry, hopefully they don't get hurt, long term, but it's very rare for those, all 3 of those guys to not get hurt for 1 or 2 games. So when one of those guys is hurt or they have to get out for even a few plays, well, that's when, Diontae comes in and he should, produce like a starter when those guys are out. And hopefully he shows enough to where, okay, we don't necessarily have to bring back Curtis Samuel the next year. If we want to, we can, but we have options. Versus if Diontae is bad this year, then you're like, okay, we probably got to keep Curtis Samuel. So Diontae this year, get 300, 400 yards. I think that's fine because, again, he's not going to get a lot of opportunities, but be very efficient in those touches, kind of like he was last year, but to a more, extent. Hopefully he gets more targets than he did last year. So that's kind of my expectations for him. And I think, he'll have a solid season for us. And also the familiarity with Sam Howell should help out a lot, or not a lot, but should definitely help out a bit as well. So he's making, and next guy for now, I'm having Dax Milne on the roster. He's had a pretty good offseason and has made the roster the last 2 years. And, hasn't done a ton, but, this past season had 6 catches, 37 yards, and that nice touchdown against the Minnesota Vikings. The year before, 9 catches, 83 yards. So, Dax Milne isn't the best for sure, but he's a solid backup slot receiver, and that's all he is. So, not guaranteed to make the roster. I think, he's going to be competing for a roster spot. He can return punts and kicks. He's not great at it, but, that's what he does. But I think he's, more established and a little bit better than some of these undrafted free agents. So that's why I probably have him on the roster right now. Now, kind of quickly talking about some other guys. Marcus Kemp is interesting. I don't know why this is still showing up. There we go. Marcus Kemp's interesting because they did bring him in. I think he might be a guy that helps guys get in control of the offense. He could make the team as a special teams guy, as like a gunner like Cam Sims, maybe. I think that Kazmeir Allen, if I had to pick one undrafted free agent, it'll be him making the roster, even though he has been hurt, which I think has lowered his stock. I think he'll make it. Mitchell Tinsley's another guy that possibly could make it. So those are the guys that have a chance after the first 4: Dax Milne, Marcus Kemp, Kazmeir Allen, and Mitchell Tinsley. I don't think anyone besides those guys really has a significant chance to make the roster. They'll keep 6, probably. I don't see a reason for them to keep 7 because a lot of these guys, probably almost all of them after 4, so after the first 4, would probably go unclaimed on waivers. Maybe Dax Milne will get claimed. So, the other guys, you'll be able to claim them back again. So, you can keep Dax Milne or Marcus Kemp, Milan or whatever, but, it's not like, teams are going to be rushing to the waivers to claim them. But if I had to guess right now, I'd go Terry, Jahan, Curtis, then Diami, Dax Milne, and Kazmeir Allen as your 6. But all subject to change, and you could throw in Marcus Kemp and Mitchell Tinsley. Who knows? But that's kind of how I see it. But I think this is a really good receiving room. I'm not going to say top 3 yet. Top 5 is still kind of pushing. I think it's comfortably top 10. And if Jahan shows that he can be a really good receiver in this league, then this could be a top 3 receiver room in the NFL. Like teams I'm putting ahead of it, of course, the why am I blanking? The Dolphins, the Bengals. I mean, you might have to throw the Seahawks in there as well. I mean, that's like kind of iffy, but they got DK, Tyler Lockett, and then just drafted Jackson Smith and Jibba. There's a few other teams as well. I'm sure I'm missing some as well. The Eagles have A.J. Brown, Quez Watkins, Devonta Smith. Like, there's some good rooms in this league. But if Jahan Dotson can turn into a really good receiver, this is a top 5 room for sure. So, that is it for today's video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and peace.